All right, we're live. Adam Menner, welcome to the future of fitness.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm super pumped to be here. It's been a long time coming.
It has. I feel like this has been on the calendar for a very long time. So I've finally got you here, and I've enjoyed every conversation we've always had. You guys are doing really good work over there, so I'm excited to highlight that. If people don't know who you are, they soon will. And yeah, so thanks for making the time. I know you have a lot going on, opening up a new gym, hosting a podcast, consulting for a ton of gyms. So there's a lot to unpack here, and I
Mhm.
really like the topic that we were just discussing that we're going to highlight here, which is servant leadership at scale. I think anybody who's tried to scale a business from 1 to 2 to 3 locations can understand that first location going to the second location is very different. And how do you do that for gym ownership or just business at large? So without further ado, let's talk about you, Adam. Give us a little bit of information about you, what you guys do at Business of Strength, your background, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you reaching out, and I know we've connected via text, call, and some emails. So I'm super excited to be here. Hopefully, provide a lot of value. But yeah, so my name's Adam Menner. I own a bunch of gyms here in the Northeast. I have two partners, and we also have a consulting company called the Business of Strength, where we help other gym owners and trainers build their businesses. Whether what stage it is doesn't really matter because we've been through it all. But one thing that's really funny is I was actually an intern, for people who don't know, at DeFranco's training systems.
Hmm.
So I was with Joe DeFranco. My first experience of fitness was walking in the door. I don't know my butt from my elbow. I get into the gym and it's just Triple H just doing band pull aparts with Brian pushing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I love this place, right? I'm meathead at heart. And so get in there, do my internship with him. And then he moved down to Texas when he did his whole stint with On It. And I came here to Varsity House as an intern. And so Joe and Dan, who are now my partners, they put me through the ringer when I was here. And so just testing, I think we like to joke, but testing my mental fortitude more than, the actual X's and O's, if you will, of training. So I survived. And ever since then, I've gone from intern to a coach to manager, now partner across all of our businesses. And so I kind of had this unique experience where it's not like I'm this founder and I started all these gyms. It's no, I was internal at the beginning and then I kind of made my way up and I ascended with the company. So I like that unique insight when I try to give advice to people because I can feel it on both ends, if you will.
Yeah, a great background. Triple H, that kind of takes me back to
Oh yeah.
the. Let's start with the gym. So
Yeah.
you have the gyms, the consulting, the podcast, a lot of different things. But let's start with the gyms. Tell us about those specifically. How you guys go about, like who the gyms are for, how you started them. Yeah, give us some details on those.
Yeah, great question. So essentially, Joe Riggio, my partner, he's the oldest of the gang here. He started in 2006. He started in literally a small storage closet training athletes. And then we quickly realized, hey, athletes don't bring in revenue all the time. So he started training adults. That quickly grew and scaled, and Dan Goodman and him became partners, and they kind of made their way up. And then from there, they came to the third rendition, which is what I'm in right now. This is kind of our headquarters, our big facility. And this is where I started in 2014. So I was here, did my internship, like I just said. And then from there, what ended up happening is, we quickly learned about the side of business like all gym owners go through, right? You think that training, becoming the smartest person in the room is going to get you all the clients, all the fame, all the money in the gym industry. But what you don't realize is the economics, the schedule, and the financial literacy of running a healthy gym business. And so we've took many courses, joined many masterminds to take that information. And we did a lot of revamping here, especially out of COVID, which was a big point of contention for everybody. And we really had to look at our business and get rid of dead weight, get rid of dead people, streamline, simplify, increase our service offerings, which led us to Varsity House Personal Training, which is a holding company where we're going to open up, a bunch of gyms. What we did though is we took our most profitable service offering, which is small group personal training in the gym, and we just do that in each of our smaller training studios. The economics for that just work out way better in terms of price per client, schedule, staffing. You only need 1 to 2 coaches per that location, profit margins, and just ease of business. It's like if you're an entrepreneur and you like do a little bit of real estate, then you have a lawn mowing business, then you do all this. It's like those are so different in themselves that it's hard to stay focused. And so we wanted to stay focused, get lean, take our main thing, and therefore it's easier to scale. And so we did that. And then we have a consulting company called the Business Strength, as I alluded to before, where we teach other gym owners, not just that, but just how to run a successful gym, whether you want to do one or you want to do many. And so that's kind of what we have going on right now.
Awesome. And for your gym locations, as you
Yeah.
guys expand, are you starting new with each location? Are you acquiring? Like, what's the plan? Is it a mixture of both? Like, what's that plan?
For sure. Good question. So no, we have our own brand. We are Varsity Gym, privately owned. We didn't accept any outside money, and we start brand new, right from the ground up. We pick our location, the lease. We go through what it's going to look like, the equipment, hire the right person. We have all the systems to do so. And we like that because something that's super important, as we kind of talked about before, is we have so much goodwill and brand recognition in the New Jersey area. So a lot of people, even from these neighboring towns, who might think like, oh, they're just a little too far. Oh, I just don't have time. We have a lot of pull in those communities. So it allows us to open these gyms up. We have so many people and such a great community of people who want to help us that it allows these launches, if you will, to go a little bit more smoothly because of that. It's not like we're moving to the Midwest and we're just trying to open up and now it's like, oh my goodness, we don't have any of these resources. We really don't know these people. So we try to be very strategic in how we do that. And that's really why we wanted to do it. When you start a business from the ground up, this is a tangent. I'm always good for one of these, Eric. So let me go.
Yeah. Great.
When you start a business from the ground up, there's two things that happen. One, I think as coaches in the industry or fitness professionals, is a lot of people want to be known as the founder. And as I alluded to you off camera, where it's like, I want to be the founder. I want my name on the door. This is my company. I did X, Y, and Z. So it's very ego and pride driven. And because of that, you think that you can go out on your own and you can create this amazing business, which led me to what I said before, is from the ground up. What you might not have from the ground up is you don't have experience, you don't have brand recognition, you don't have financial literacy, you don't have compounding goodwill, which a lot of people don't talk about, which is just serving your community a lot and doing all the little things where it's like, oh my goodness, I know Eric. He's a great guy. He helped my kid for 3 years. You have zero of that. So you are literally not begging, but you are literally trying to get people to come in and train. And you're doing everything, the marketing, the coaching, the selling, the billing, accounts receivable, all the little things that you don't want to do. Versus if you are part of a company that has a true growth mindset, one clear mission, one true purpose. I use myself as examples. You could go from an intern to a partner in that position where now you have all the resources, all the brand recognition, everything you need, and now you can move much faster. And so that is why we wanted to be strategic about the places that we pick, the people who we do business with. And so far, it's worked in our favor. So
yeah, love it. Well, how big are they? What's the general footprint that you guys are looking for?
Sure. So they range between 12 and 1,500 square feet.
Okay.
So 12 and 1,500 square feet. Our price per client is about $400. We average between 120 and 130 members with 1.5 coaches operating at about 30 to 35% margin per facility.
Wow. That's really good. Yeah.
So
small. I thought for some reason I was expecting like 5,000-6,000 square feet.
No. So that's where you could get lost those because from a financial standpoint, we want to make sure that we are always right side up and we try to recoup our money is in little as 2 to 3 months after launch. And so you can't do that when you have these, these big facilities. There's too many ancillary costs, overhead, and what have you.
Yeah. I think if I was going to go back on my gym operating career, I would look at one of the things that was a mistake. It was ego driven, 100%, was going from, 2,500 square feet to 5,000 square feet. Right. So trying to add like personal training, a bunch of things that, were in my core. Meanwhile, if I had just not done that, stuck to the very core thing of, the 80% of where our revenue came from, right, which was group classes, CrossFit group classes, basically. If I had just kept to that, really reinvested in that, in experience and the coaching and the retention and all that I probably would have been far more profitable than I was. It was still a good gym, but I look at that like the discipline, right? Like you have to stay disciplined. So easy to see shiny things and chase them. So yeah, that's surprising that you guys are that small. It's must be very, very efficient.
That's a great point though. That's a great point is in fitness, you try to align your business sometimes with your personal interests. Yeah. And you romanticize your business because you're like, I'm really good at CrossFit. I'm really good at PRI. I'm really good at West Side Barbell. And the list goes on and on and on. But there's a good book by Dan Kennedy called Marketing to the Affluent. Something that a lot of people don't do is they don't think about picking their ideal avatar and then reversing a business around it. So, what I'll say is we go into very wealthy towns where we know we can charge 400, 500, $600 a month. Nobody bats an eye. So just do the math on that. 120 members, 400, 500, $600 a month, 12 to 1,500 square feet operating at those margins. Because we know that that our bread and butter is customized personal strength training in a small group setting. So take any of your principles. Sure, we have ours. We have the Varsity House training model, but take any of your principles and just create a system that serves those people. So we serve parents, adults between the ages of 40 and 60 and their kids. We don't want superstars. I want the kid that wants to train 3 times a week year round because he loves being in shape and listening to music and hanging out with their coaches. And those people are very easy to service because their expectation is not like you just alluded to, which was a great point of like CrossFit. Is this gym hardcore? You know what I mean? And then what ends up happening is you're spending like hours and hours a week writing the best program to serve those people based upon the needs that they told you that they wanted. And now you're like, okay, this person said they needed this. They want to go for a PR in the snatch. Okay, like this is a good progression. And it's like, that's wasted energy when you could have said like, no, who fits into this training model that we know we could serve, deliver, and get great results.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, no offense to anybody who is an athlete that trained in my gym back in the day, but you were a pain in the ass. Like you took up a lot of time, a lot of space. You needed it. Like if you want to train and hit your goals, right? You needed that extra time in the gym and that freedom and all that, but it was not good for the core, the core people within my gym. Walk me through the client experience. Like what does that look like?
For sure. Yeah. Great question. So, in the gym industry, there's a couple of statistics that you have to be aware of if you want to start a gym. That is number one, somebody won't buy from you in the first 2 weeks, but the 85% of people buy in the next 100. So your points of contact have to be very high via marketing, servicing people, reaching out, and follow up. Number two is that in the onboarding experience, people who have a great onboard experience, meaning, which I'll talk about in a little bit, the retention is much higher and their client lifetime value is much higher. And we found that if they can get to the 6-month point, that they're going to stay for about 3 years. So we have to make sure that they're coddled, if you will, to that 6-month point. And then we know that we're going to service them in the back end. We call that defensive marketing. But we know that we're going to service them on the back end and that they should be a member for a very long time. But our onboard is pretty detailed. And this is what separates us a little bit. Not detailed in the sense of like, I'm going to put you through this whole complicated assessment. I'm going to see your internal, external rotation. I'm going to see your respiration strategies. Not that. It's detailed in experience. So I'll just use you, Eric, as, I'll walk you through it. It's like you inquired about training at the gym. We make you fill out a waiver, a part Q, and an intake form. When you get there on the TV, we have your name. Welcome, Eric. We sit you down. We do a goal setting session. Hey, tell me about this. Let's review some of these things. How do you feel? Why, where did you experience your best results? And it's sales and goal setting. Then we do a physical assessment where we categorize our members into novices or advanced. Not true advanced, like, oh my gosh, like you can deadlift 600 pounds. Advanced, just like he could do 20 strict push-ups. He could do inverted rows. He could squat. Like he's pretty good, he or she. And a novice is like, I haven't seen the gym inside the gym 10, 15 years. My work capacity is low. So then you get categorized. Then once we do that, we bring you back up and we talk about, hey, here's our different options. And this is just a little sales secret. Always go with the highest priced option and only show 2 of them, right? And so it's like, hey, you have 2 options of training. You don't want your menu to look like, a giant restaurant menu of all different options. It's just like, hey, we do this and this. That's it. Once we do that, we onboard them to all of our platforms. So our training tech platform, our community management platform, into Facebook, and then we get them a little gift when they sign up. So it has like a sticker, an envelope, a handwritten card with their name, a t-shirt, and we give that to them so that we're in their home so that they remember us. They go through a 30-day life cycle of just reminders like, hey, good morning, it's Monday. Can't wait to see you at the gym later. And that's an automation. Then once they go through that process, right, like we said, if we could get them to the 6-month mark, which is just about great training, we know that they'll stay for a while. So that's what we do. Every single person that inquires about coming to train with us, they get a one-on-one goal setting session. So it's a lot. but it definitely is shown to work.
Yeah, well, your margins speak for themselves, and strength as a category for training is having a moment. It's very popular, especially in the female demographic, at least with the people I
Sure.
talk to and conversations I've had. So, are you seeing that as well? Like, is that something you're seeing, and why do you think that is?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, global trends just in the private sector industry as like a whole is that strength training is like the most research backed modality of fitness because it delivers the best results just because of obviously all the adaptations versus, a lot of these fads that are coming in and out that they're trying to make, classes around or other brands of fitness. Those are great, but those complement your strength sessions. So I look at it the same as like they shouldn't be the base of the pyramid. That is strength. We know that any adaptation that you want, cardiovascular, your fitness, your work capacity, your power, your speed is a byproduct of developing great strength. But strength is also something that can be quantified, if you will, on a weekly, monthly basis. I know that if
Hmm.
you come in and that you do 3 rounds of 10 at body weight week one, next week we can add load, and then we can go from the goblet squat to a dumbbell squat to a box squat. That's a year of training right there. And so it's the easiest to progress and regress, and it has the most long-term benefits. And if you want to do some of your other style of fitness, that complements that. And that's what's worked tremendously for us. So I'm not trying to compete with Barry's Boot Camp or Orange Theory. I'm like, oh, you like Orange Theory? That's no problem. You could do Orange Theories on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then you could come to us on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You will get in the best shape of your life if you do that. And it's like, oh, okay, I see it as a compliment, not like, don't do that and pick ours over that. And we try to have goodwill too, just in terms of like, I don't want to talk badly ever about any modality in fitness because fitness is great. But what we've seen in the industry is that a lot of things are reverting back to strength training because it has the best long-term adaptation. And research has shown that it has the best effect on you, especially as you get older. I mean, we have people that are doing strength training, like dumbbell squatting 100 pounds at 80 years old. So
Amazing.
it's pretty cool to see the longevity of that, where it's like, I don't know if I would have an 80-year-old get on a treadmill for 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's longevity is so now closely tied to strength as well. I mean, I don't know if you read Atia's book.
Yeah, of course.
I Yeah, I kind of it took me a while to get through it. It's dense.
Super
Um,
dense.
yeah, but then if you look at, like, I was starting to break down his overall training, like between the strength and the VO2, like all the special, I'm like, dude, you got to have like 20 hours a week to do a training plan like that.
Exactly.
But my mind is like, well, if we could distill it down to the real person in a real life, right? Like
Mhm.
the thing that's core that should be, done, basically through the rest of your life is strength. Like if I was going to
Of
break
course.
down one modality, I think that's got to be it. So yeah, I mean, it's a great place to be in, especially with women. I mean, that's something you guys have got to see. Those women are hitting the weight room, and not just like, machines, but we're talking like legitimate training.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and that's another good point, where if I want somebody to be consistent, I have to break it down in a way that's digestible and I build confidence and I'm persuading them to, hey, I know you're only using a 5 pound dumbbell right now, but I'm telling you, if you come 3 times a week, like in 3 months, this dumbbell is going to be 30 pounds. And you see them and they're like, oh my goodness, like that's incredible. But it's very hard for me to sell somebody, air quotes, to be like, hey, I know you're running 18 miles an hour on the treadmill right now. In 10 years, you're going to be running 25 miles per hour on the treadmill. It's like, that's not, I'm lying to you, one. But two, it's also just like, what does this look like as I go on here? Whereas you're still training. I'm still training. And I've been doing this for 15 years. It's like, because it's endless. I can keep progressing those modalities. And if I was to tell somebody, like, hey, you're going to get 3 strength training sessions a week and you're going to go for 2 long walks, it's like, oh, I could do that. And now you build confidence in their ability to do that. And to answer your question, especially women are very intimidated by the gym. They think they're going to get bulky and bigger. And now we have the evidence to show, through all of our transformations and pictures, but we have the evidence to show like, no, that's not the case. Here's actually what would happen. And if you really want to get into it, if you don't do any strength training and you only do cardiovascular work, actually your muscle will begin to atrophy and your body weight or your body fat could go up. So you're actually going to look worse if you don't implement, strength training. And so there's many ways that we frame that for people, and that helps build confidence. And, once you get them in the gym, they feel confident.
Do you guys touch on nutrition for the clients as well, or is
Yeah.
that something, or is that considered a distraction from your core
Yeah.
principles?
So that's a great question. So before we created the expansion plan, we had an in-house nutritionist, a registered dietitian, and we did a lot of nutrition consults. We made it a big point of contention of training here, and it was great, and people loved it. But when looking at the business and the P&L, and you just go line item by different service offering, it was always on the bottom. But of course we would say like, no, but they need it, no, but they need it, and it accounted for like 5% of revenue. But if you were to look at usage and capacity for a registered dietitian, they were spending like 10 hours a week doing it. So it's like 10 hours a week compounded over a year. You're talking about almost like 1,000 hours. And it was just like, or hundreds of hours, but it was just like for 5%. So from a business standpoint, it didn't make sense. So what we ended up doing is we basically digitized all of the nutrition stuff. So we create like macro calculators, meal templates, and we package that up into digital assets that we can say like, hey, if you're interested in nutrition, I have these resources. Can I share that with you? And you can go through that. And if you have any questions, let me know. And it's just a
Smart.
great way to not waste energy on that, but still have it as a resource, as add value to our core service.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. That's a really good idea. And, it's funny, like some of the gym owner consultants and mentors I work with over the years, a lot of it was like adding, it was always adding. Okay, add this program, add that, add this, try this, do that. But very few were like, no, cut it, cut it, cut it, cut it, simplify. Right. And I think that's, what I've noticed about the difference about you guys in our conversations is that you're very much about like, no, get to the core, simplify, don't waste time on anything else and energy and assets to do it. And that I imagine that's very cognizant in the way that you guys approach things, especially with your scaling up plan.
Definitely. And trainer burnout is real. In the private sector industry, the turnover rate is 90%, meaning one every year. So you last a year and then you go on to your next thing. And burnout happens of one, it could be schedule and capacity. If you're just doing 40 training hours and your schedule is all over the place, like of course, like anybody's gonna get burned out. But the
Yeah.
second thing is we like to use a word is cost of fulfillment, or a phrase. Cost of fulfillment is if I offer too much, like you just said, hey, we're going to do this VIP package and nutrition package. We also offer classes and stretch and sauna and this. That means that as a business owner, you have to manage all those different service offerings. Okay, accounts receivable for each of them. Okay, I need multiple people to be able to service multiple things. And you're burning bandwidth and you're burning energy, which is not sustainable long term. And so that's why when we just focus on training, I think we have some of the best coaches in the industry because all I have to do is coach them on how to train people, deal with people, create a great experience, celebrate our clients. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. And so that's why we want to create real long-term careers for people in the industry. And we know by doing that, if I try to give them more than they can handle, they're going to get overwhelmed. They might not communicate with us. They might start to resent us. I know I'm going on a different path, but it's the truth. And so the more simple your business can be, that's also just being in tune with the economics of your business. But the more simple your business can be, the better your coaches can service that product, right? You don't go to a Michelin star restaurant and get 100 different options. You go to a Michelin star restaurant, they hand you a menu that has like 5 options.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. Well said. I want to get into the core kind of piece that we're going to cover, and I want to reference like you and I talked about this pre-recording. I was on Brandon Cullen from Metabolic, his podcast, Playing Guilty, and we kind of did a interview swap within there. And one of the things that I asked him about was, can you scale quality? Right? Like here's, Metabolic started with a couple core, like their initial corporately owned locations. It was just Brandon and his partner. They knew what they were doing. They passionate, right? Put in all the work. And then, the challenge is as you start to scale, right? And the way you phrased it was, servant leadership at scale. So tell me, what does that mean to you? And obviously there's a lot of challenges as you scale to the quality of what you're doing, but specifically leadership. How do you start to approach that? What are your inputs on that?
yeah, no, great question. As any gym business, like we said before, if you are the owner or the founder, You want to become the smartest in the room, deliver the best product. There's so many little nuances, and you could attest this too, that are just hard to teach, like how I interact with people, how I deal with client issues, how I instigate success on the training floor. It's like, all right, we got to push Eric, we got to push your, hey man, you feeling okay? Why don't you go get a water? It's like, how do I teach that to somebody? And so we think that we can just do it ourselves. And that's why we just, everybody did this. They wear it as a badge of honor, like 50, 60 hours. Nobody coaches more than me. Nobody does this more than me. But then your business begins to do this because then your own quality begins to go down. So something that we put a tremendous amount of thought and effort into is quality control. And we do that by elevating coaches to be able to serve our community. So servant leadership at scale. And what we really do is, that's why it happens in 3 phases. Phase 1 is simplifying, like we just talked about, our product. You can't serve if you're all over the place and you have to worry about so many different options. So that's number 1. Number 2 is you have to create a standard for what great quality looks like. And that happens in twofold. That happens in the actual training session. So we have like a training play sheet and a coaching eval sheet where it's like, hey, did you address their name 5 times? Hey, did you set up their mats? Did you set up the weights before they got there? Did you instigate success? We have a thing called SWIFT. SWIFT is an acronym. We use smile, work the room, instigate success, find a friend, be thankful. We're use SWIFT. And so that's how a great session looks. And we have coaches grade other coaches in the session. And if you fall below an 8, you need some work to do. We need to make sure you more. And so that's quality control. The second part of quality control is also the type of people that we hire. Our hiring process is unbelievably extensive, from our recruiting to our hiring to our on-the-job training to actually becoming a full-time team member here, because I want people that are adhere to our core values, which is just hungry, humble, committed to excellence, and socially smart. Meaning, if you come in and you think you're the man or the woman and you're just super smart, and you come in and you're like, hey, I know more than everybody else, I could do this, I could do that, not only going to rub the members the wrong way, you're going to rub our team the wrong way. And that's going to affect how we all serve together. The third part of that is consistency from all of our coaches, meaning, Eric, you probably delivered the best training session in your gym over any coach, 100%. But the drop off from you to me, if I'm a new coach coming in, can't be so significant that there's a discrepancy in service, where it's like, now all I want to do is just train with Eric. Eric keeps getting busy. I just want to train with Eric. It's like, I don't really want to train with Adam. He's weird, or he doesn't know how to demonstrate the exercises properly. And so we make sure that we have the same training system that we all know inside and out, and that our cueing, our coaching, our language is all the same. So simplify your service offering, quality control on both the actual service side and the hiring process. And then thirdly is all about making sure that the training system is the same, so there's no discrepancy in delivery.
Yeah, beautiful. And, consistency. This term has come up, and I just wrote about it in my newsletter too, like hospitality has come up quite a bit in conversations I've had on this podcast or within the industry over seemingly just about over the last year. I'm sure it's been around forever, but one of the keys to good hospitality, like, and someone who pointed it out, I want to give him credit, but it was like, we're not in the service industry, we're in the hospitality industry.
100%.
Right. And one of the keys to great hospitality is consistency, right? If you go to a Four Seasons, in New York or, in Central Asia, wherever you are, that it's going to be consistent. Right. Yep. The experience is going to be consistent. And that's probably one of the hardest things to do at scale, is getting consistency. So, it sounds like that's kind of what you guys are going after. Is that a conversation you deliberately have with your staff? Is like, we need to be consistent?
Of course. Yeah. That is so top of mind for me, is just coaching delivery has to be consistent, which just goes back to point number 2 of quality control, and like just having a trainer checklist and a coaching evaluation sheet. Because I know if you get an 8 out of 10 in one of our locations, you come to another location, get an 8 out of 10, you're consistent. And so that's how we make sure that we're doing those things. And the second part of consistency, I think, as in a leadership standpoint, this could probably lead us into the second point of service-based leadership from the owner side, is, you have to spend a significant amount of time with your staff. I think a lot of people try to, once they get to a certain level, they try to buy back your time, the entrepreneurial dream, freedom, time, money. That's all true, 100%. But in the service-based business, one of your fundamental core values as a human has to be service, because these people are the ones who pay your bills. These people are the ones who give you life for you and your family. So if I am just denying that fact and I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter, they're leaving, oh, it doesn't matter, blah, blah, it's not going to pan out well. And then your reputation will begin to spew, and you do not want that in a brick and mortar service-based business. So spending time with your staff, we do a lot of, I call them fire drills. So I literally do mock training sessions where one of our coaches has to train 5, 6 of our other coaches right there. And it's like, oh my goodness, talk about getting nervous. It's like, hey, Eric, right now, stand up. You have to coach me and these 5 other coaches. It's like, well, okay. And so we constantly we like to say, taste our food. I take classes regularly. I'm tasting the food regularly. Hey, how did that go? We should have done this. No, we could pull back from this. Don't do that. And just constantly evaluating it. And so spending a lot of time in the trenches, taking classes, tasting your food goes a very long way to make sure that there's consistency across the board. And now, once you start to scale beyond 10 locations, 15 and 20, it becomes a different story. You have to really double, triple down on those systems. But that's a different conversation.
Yeah. Let's touch on recruitment. That's been challenging, for a lot of fitness businesses over the past few years. And, I have theories about it, like, is personal training kind of falling into the gig economy?
Yeah.
Are people looking at this as an actual career that they can do for 10, 20 plus years, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges and maybe advantages that you guys have when it comes to recruiting, A players in your gyms?
Yeah, for sure. This is something I'm super passionate about, just doing it so much and sitting in on so many job interviews, doing so many on-the-job trainings. I have a fundamental belief in 3 parts. I try to break everything to 3. You can tell I'm like
Me too. Yep.
Number 1 is recruiting starts with you. Recruiting starts with you. How do you carry yourself? How do you speak? How do you conduct yourself? How do you have a family? How do you treat your family? Do you party all the time? Do you treat your body like a carnival? How do you conduct yourself? And because people want to be around other like-minded people. I want to be around somebody who is either ahead of where I am, has a character trait I don't have, they have something physically that I don't have, because I want to learn, I want to develop, because I want to grow. And so a lot of times people are like, why doesn't anybody want to come here and work for me? It's like, it may be you. You and yourself as the owner of your company may be the issue. Nobody wants to work for a boss who micromanages. Nobody wants to work for a boss who's demeaning. Nobody wants to work for somebody who, look at in other industries. I wouldn't take nutrition advice from somebody who's overweight. I wouldn't take financial advice from somebody who's broke. I wouldn't go work for a gym owner who is emotionally unstable, out of shape, and doesn't have a good grasp on his business. So fundamental pillar number 1 is it starts with you, because you will attract those types of people. So what you're posting on social, how you speak, your reputation, that it's going to echo into the ether sphere, and you are going to get that back tenfold. The second part is what's your actual process look like in terms of getting somebody to inside your doors and getting them to become a full-time member. And so what we do is we have a 3-step process. 1, we have paid ads for coaches coming into our business. So that's just LinkedIn. Sometimes it's Instagram, Facebook, whatever the case may be. We're trying to stockpile resumes, and we go through that. 1, they do a pre-screening questionnaire with the founder, which is Joe. So it's like a 15, 20-minute conversation. Sometimes it doesn't even get through there. It's like, this person's terrible. Next. But if it does, they do an in-person meeting with our advisory board, which is 4 of us. They sit down an hour, get berated, not literally, but it's just like, well, expectation is very important. So, hey, you may be working these hours. Have you ever worked those hours before? Hey, this is the people you're going to be dealing with. Have you ever done that before? Tell me a time of where you got really overwhelmed and how you overcame it. So we're very thorough in that process, because I'm trying to extrapolate so much information. If they pass that, then they do what's called a shadow day. The shadow day is where they come in with me. There's 3 hours unpaid. I want to test we like to say our GSF, their give a crap factor, if you will, where it's like, if I'm sitting in the interview and you're here and you want the job, and I say, hey, we're going to do a 3-hour shadow tomorrow. Does that work for you? And they're like, is this paid? It's like, I don't want you right away. I don't want you. You came to me and I want to see if you fit in with what we do. So then we do the shadow. If they pass the shadow, we meet as an advisory board and we make a decision. If we make a decision, we offer a formal letter, but it's 90-day contingent. So we don't just hire you. 90 days of what's called on-the-job training, where we created a total coach's roadmap. And that's just getting somebody from point A to point B. That's everything from the professionalized side of things. Are you CPR certified, trainer certification, AED? We go through the whole nine. Then we go through like our core values, our mission, our training model. So it's super thorough. If you sign off and you pass on all of those, congratulations, you're hired. Then we give you a full-time schedule, and then we just kind of acclimate you from there. So that's the second part, is just a true process of hiring and making sure you mesh well with our business. The third pillar is, this is a little bit more big picture, but it's the truth is your business has to have the sustainability and the infrastructure to be able to provide a real career for somebody where they want to come and work for you. The training industry is in the bottom 5%, according to EBIS World, of salaries in the world.
Yeah.
So if I have somebody come in and I'm like, hey, you're 32 years old, but you're going to make $25,000 a year for 2 years. It's like, dude, I have a wife. So that is why the economics of your business, simplifying your model, increasing margins, maybe expanding a little bit, provides real careers for people. So what we want to make sure is that people have the opportunity to come in and make real money. And so we've done that by, if you work for Varsity House Gym, you get a 401k, you get health benefits, you get paid days off, and we make sure that we map out your schedule where you don't exceed 20 to 25 coaching hours in a week. You have the ability, that's just a coach, then to become a general manager or a facility leader of one of our smaller locations, where you can make 6 figures. That is true ascension of somebody. So I could take, whether they're an intern or somebody who wants to come in and coach, I want to make sure that we provide real career opportunity for them. And so that's the third tenet, is, does your business offer the infrastructure that will elicit long-term career sustainability?
Yeah. Awesome, man. I mean, that alone allows for all the other things that you said in the recruiting process, right? If you have a very desirable job, like there's still, I don't know what the numbers are, but it seems like maybe there's less people interested in being personal trainer or coach than maybe there were 10, 15 years ago, right?
Definitely.
But there's still a decent amount of them. And if you can show them like a very clear career path with, less risk than some of these other places that you can go to. I mean, there's always going to be the ones that want to be the influencer, right?
Mhm.
Like that's the thing, is like a lot of people want to do part-time in the gym, and then I want to build my influencer, my Instagram and TikTok, and like that's a modern fitness professional, right? I would argue it's not a viable path forward, right?
No.
But I think that's the big thing, is like, if you have enough, if your pizza's big enough that you can give away a nice slice to the trainers, right? And the pizza being the business, of course, then that's very helpful. And that was challenges I ran into, like a 23% margin. It was decent, good, right, on a gym, but it wasn't enough to really get like full-time people and pay all the 401k. So it was a difficult circumstance to be in. So really focusing on the business, having a profitable business, to be able to have a good offering, is going to be able to allow you to be very stringent in how you get the recruiting process through and make sure you're getting the right people. So kudos to you guys for that, for figuring out probably the hardest piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. It wasn't always like that. When I first started here, it was not like that, but that's why growth is so important as any business. And everybody knows that. Usually, if you go to school for business, or you start a big time company or financial firm, it's like, of course, that. But for some reason, gym owners, we're a bunch of meatheads. We don't know that stuff. We just, like you said before, we think we write the best programming and we have the best atmosphere and culture, air quotes. It's like, yeah, everybody's going to want to come work out and work for us. But the reality is that we need to grow in order to elevate and retain our best employees. Because if we don't, you don't want to be, my buddy was on one of our podcasts, and he used a great analogy, is you don't want people to be stuck behind a parked car where they feel like they're just doing so much work, but it's not moving. And then guess what happens? They start looking around, they get distracted, they look for other jobs, they look for other opportunity, because you alluded to it before, there was no expectation, where it's like, if you enter the Varsity House Gym ecosphere, you have a very long career if you want it. And so we like to say people don't get fired, they fire themselves here. So it's like you either get in and you can keep riding this wave and we'll provide you back tenfold, or if you don't like it, you got to go.
Awesome. I want to touch on technology. I mean,
Yeah.
is there anything that you guys are leveraging right now as far as tech, or anything you have your eyeball on as far as tech when it comes to gym ownership, strength, client experience, all that?
Yeah, I think we were a little behind actually in the tech side of things. The last year and change, we've really revamped how we use technology, how we integrate with our business. But, we really have five, which is I'm going to go on both the client side and our company side. The client side is just a POS system. We use a MindBody, which everybody knows of. So we use MindBody. We use True Coach for all of our programming. So that's just universal there. And then we use our Facebook group, which is old school, but guess what? That's where our avatar are. So we wanted to create a fancy chat. It's like, that's not where they are. So we have a Facebook group where no matter what location you're at, you get added to our Facebook group. And then we use something that we're just going to start instituting, which is Nominally, which I don't know if you guys know of, but Nominally is a client management system. So we're going to make sure that we use that on the back end. Now, on the internal side for the business, we use what's called Go High Level, which is just our CRM. And so that's just what we use to manage clients in our pipeline. But the one thing that we created, which revolutionized our business, was I have scorecards that we use. We call them offensive and defensive scorecards. Offensive scorecards is literally detailed in live time of how many members we have, price per client, service offerings, leads, trials, conversions, what our total members are at. And so we're updating that in real time. So our staff, our sales team knows like, hey, like we're at this many members, we need to get to this. And so that is the offensive scorecard. It's in an Excel sheet. The defensive scorecard is our client retention process, which is all about keeping clients. So this is everything that includes celebrating our members, doing big events. We do handwritten cards. We do first workouts. We do pictures, write-ups, training reports. We keep tabs of all of that on the defensive side. So our input and our data is very high. And that's pretty much it. We're pretty simple, obviously. And so those are the things that we feel like we can use at each location. And we just copy it with every gym that we go to. So
Awesome. Awesome, man. Yeah, it's my first business coach in the gym setting was Andy Petronic from CrossFit Los Angeles.
okay.
He broke everything down into get them, keep them.
That's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah, very similar. And it's really simplified things. Like, listen, there's two things you guys got to focus on. Get them, keep them. And it's better if like you kind of, not everyone should do all of one thing, but there should be a focus. Like I was very focused on the get them. That was my job, right?
Yep.
Anyway, great. I love it. Let's focus. Tell me about your podcast network, or tell us about your podcast network. You guys, I was listening to a couple this morning. Really cool, really good guests. I was listening to the one you had with Damon Lillard's coach.
Yeah.
That was pretty fun. But give us some insights, like about the podcast network that you guys have, why you started it, and why people should tune into, what type of content it is.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah. So our podcast is called The Business of Strength. It's Joe, Dan, and myself, partners in the gym and also with the Business of Strength. And basically, we just on that podcast, we have guests on there, or we just talking about what we're doing in real time, which I think adds some pretty unique insight into it. It's like we are all still heavily, heavily involved in our businesses, which I think is our competitive edge. Joe, Dan, and myself, we're not removed at all. We're all working a ton. We're all in the building right now. And so we make sure we have a really good pulse on our business. We know it's not always going to be the case as we grow, but up until 5, 10 locations, we want to be as involved as possible. I think that makes our coaches feel at ease. So that's what's unique about that podcast is it's just, hey, this is a new system I implemented. Hey, this is how we're mitigating attrition, or like, hey, we're having a guest on that they're teaching us about how to do something. And so that's what's pretty cool about that is that's what makes that company very unique. It's just so real time. It's live. It's what's happening. It's interactive. And we serve our coaches in there just like we serve our members in the gym. And I think that's what really makes us different.
Awesome, man. And what benefits do you personally have from the podcast? Do you enjoy it? Like, is there anything that surprised you about doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I like to talk. So I love talking and just explaining what we got going on and just about training, business, life. So it's just a great place to do that, but also to learn. Every guest that we ever have on is just an opportunity to learn. I think we are all so humble here, where it's like I act as if I know nothing. That helps. So no matter who I have on the podcast, it's like, oh, cool, that's a good point. Let me write this down. Or, oh, yeah, that's a good thing. And the size business that we have now, we don't need to take anything that's revolutionary and revamp our business. We just need little nuggets that we hear that we can implement and fine tune to just make us that much better. So the real fulfillment is just learning and connecting with other people in the industry.
Awesome. And those are, you can find that on Apple Podcasts,
Yeah,
all
you
the
can
normal
find those.
places.
Yeah, you can find those anywhere. You'd be able to find those anywhere. Yeah, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the other networks.
Right on. And the last question I always ask people,
Yeah.
but as an industry, what do you need help with? Like, what can we help you with? If people are going to reach out to you, what would you like to hear from them about?
Yeah, no, I mean that's pretty cool. I appreciate that. I think just tuning in more to what we have going on. So just getting more involved with the business strength. You can reach out to myself at the Business Strength or Varsity House, and just we love to connect with people and we love to make a difference. We're not stingy about paying for our time and all of that. Where it's like, hey, if you have questions, if you're running a gym, if you're in the fitness industry, please reach out. I'd be more than happy to help you guys. And so that is really a core value of ours as a company is serve. So in terms of help, just check us out more. If you like what we're doing, promote it. But outside of that, that is it.
Right on. And I just want to point out too that you guys are part of the podcast collective community. So thank you for joining that. It's great having a brand like yours on that page and being open to the guests that we have there. Last question. Where do people get a hold of you? If you want people to go somewhere online, where would you like them to go at?
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram at Adam Menner. Very simple, all lowercase Adam Menner. And I'll give my email just because my email's where I probably respond the best is adam@varsityhousegym.com. So yeah, if you want to go on Instagram or if you want to email me a few questions from there, I'll answer you. And if you guys even need more help, let's get on the phone.
Yeah, very cool. Well, Adam, thank you so much for joining me. This is it's just been really actionable for people, like the value and the tactics and the strategies and just the overall kind of hearing how you approach it. And I think, if there's one thing I would pull out of this is like simplify, right? There's no, the only thing that usually is holding people back from simplifying their business is their ego. And I can say that for personal experience, that really held me back too. So
Of course,
very great messaging. Yeah, really appreciate it. And ladies and gentlemen, Adam Menner.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me on. I had a good time.